Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup. And so if you're new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do indeed like video, and let's get straight into it. So of course, starting off with the boxing news, and so Berlanga has been called as Canelo's mandatory, and so if he goes through and beats Munguia, possibly we might see Berlanga Canelo next. It was close to happening before, possibly we might see it, but still not really a fight which at the moment I'm currently too excited of the prospect about. Kademi versus Farag was cancelled. Avanesian has been ordered to fight Weiss. His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh wants Crawford versus Ennis this year, which is a fight which I feel like every boxing fan wants this year. Ayoka will fight Martinez July 7th. Garcia wants to fight Cruz or Fundora. I think the prospect of a Cruz fight is really exciting to me, but Fundora one possibly, but obviously he's going to be out till September, so we're not really too sure what's happening with him. But the Forte de Cruz Garcia fight really does excite me. Crawford versus Madrimov, Cruz versus Valenzuela, Ruiz versus Miller, and Santa Cruz versus Mares 3 will fight August 3rd. A great card again. It's the first uh, Riyadh season card which is out in America, and it's very good as expected. It's great to see Crawford back. I think Crawford versus Madrimov is going to be an underrated fight, and it's an underrated matchup, and I think it could make for a very good fight which people are not going to be expecting. Obviously it hasn't got the hype of Crawford versus Spence, but I do feel like it has the makings to be a great fight. And obviously of course Pitbull Cruz, one of my favourite fighters at the moment, just entertainment, sheer entertainment wise, and to see him back in the ring is always going to be an exciting prospect. And as well, Andy Ruiz getting back in the ring. It's been a long time since we've seen him, and versus Miller, it's a good test for Ruiz. I think it's going to show if he's actually still able to operate not around the top level, but around a relatively high level where Miller's going to bring the pressure. And I'm not really a massive fan of Miller still continuing to get big paydays after, of course, all what's happened with him, but nonetheless, he is still a relatively good challenge for an opponent like Ruiz. Barroyu is in talks to fight Kelly. Billum Smith will fight will rematch Riakport June 15th. Matchroom has won the Ennis versus Crowley purse bid, so it seems like they're putting Ennis straight out into fights, and so nonetheless it's going to be intriguing to see how he deals with being a matchroom fighter now. Russell will fight Los Santos June 15th. Garcia has joined Golden Boy. Cruz, also on that card that I forgot to mention, the Cruz vs Madrimov one is Ortiz Jr. versus Tszyu, and Morel versus Kalazic, and Cruz versus Moran, who will of course fight August 3rd as well. And the Ortiz Jr. versus Tszyu one, of course, after what's happened with Ortiz Jr. this week, which I'm going to get into in just a short moment, it's making for a really good fight, and I'm really excited to see the prospect of the fight, and I'll speak a bit more about it in a moment. Of course, Morel moving up in weight as well, and another fighter who is a very entertaining watch, and to be so low down on the card, but still I believe fight for a world title, if not an interim one, it's a great prospect as well. And of course Cruz in another step up in his amazing career so far. Navarro is signed with Top Rank. Gonzalez will fight Barrera July 12th. Davis Jr. will fight Lipinets on May 8th. Matchroom has partnered with Drip. Cassie won via unanimous decision versus Kara. Mikhailovic won via TK round 1 versus Sherrington. Parr won via TK round 5 versus Watt. Dargan won via majority decision versus Gillespie. Hussein won via TK round 10 versus Smith. Lescurat won via unanimous decision versus Sandstrom to remain WBA World Super Flyweight Champion. Tszyu won via unanimous decision versus Crieti to remain Australian Super Welterweight Champion. Tapia won via unanimous decision versus Gonzalez to become WBO Latino Middleweight Champion. Zinad won via majority decision versus Pampeon. And to speak about that card, the actual prediction that I did for the fight of Sandstrom versus Lescurat, I didn't manage to actually be able to watch the fight because it's quite hard to find the actual footage of the fight. But nonetheless, Lescurat managed to beat my prediction, I suppose, and be able to go out there and get a unanimous decision away from home, which I have a lot of respect for her to be able to do that. And it's showing a talent in Sandstrom, a talent who did have Australian backing and did have amateur somewhat pedigree and a level of respect around the Australian game. And now she's shown that she can't beat a world champion, and Lescurat is making a credible name for herself to be a world champion now. And so I have a lot of respect for her for going out there, like I say again, and going out into somebody else's home country and being able to win clearly, unanimously. The Tszyu fight versus Creative, I did manage to watch that one. It was a interesting fight. It was another entertaining one. I feel like Tszyu's always going to be in these entertaining fights, Nikita Tszyu, and obviously he got hurt again. Creati was seemingly out of the fight early on in round 3, but he managed to come in, and I believe it was round 6 or 7 where he hurt Tszyu, and Tszyu's continually getting hurt in these fights. He's got great punch placement, he's got great timing, really good counters, very good power, and attacking wise he's very, very good. But defensive wise, it's just the minimal head movement and the fact that he seems to get hurt most fights and he gets drawn into fights and he is right in front of you. There's defensive things which I feel like definitely are going to be needed to be sharpened. But like his brother's not really ever especially been known for having good head movement or anything crazy defensive wise, but it has been improved and it has been sharpened throughout his career, and so I'm sure it's probably going to be something that's going to have to happen with Nikita Tszyu as well. And then also the Zinad versus Pampayan fight, I got my prediction wrong for that one, I got the one right for the Tszyu fight, but credit to Zinad, he picked his shots nicely, better than I probably thought. At range he was picking his shots and keeping a relatively good distance. He got caught a few times by Pampayan, but Pampayan just seemed to struggle to actually cause any too much of an effect to stop Zinad come forwards. And Zinad, of course, did kind of go through a fire of some good shots, and so nonetheless it was a good performance from Zinad, and he's putting him and his country on the map now. And obviously, it's not anything like too crazy of a win or anything, but nonetheless, like to be doing that from where he's from and to be one of the first people to do that, it's credit to him, and I'm sure it means a whole lot to him. Chamberlain will fight Cieslak on June 15th. Nukes has been ordered to fight Segula. Broner versus Cobbs. Mikhailian versus Rozicki. Green will fight June 7th. Davis is set to fight Madueno July 6th. James has filed a lawsuit against Spence Jr. That is Derek James versus Spence Jr. I just thought I'd mention it. It's not entertaining, it's intriguing. The downfall of what's happened with Errol Spence. And I mean, Derek James isn't in. I mean, obviously he's coming off a big win with Ryan Garcia, but he was tipped to be at one point like some world beater head coach, and he still is. But I don't know, it's just seemingly not in the best of places at the moment with him. Not really too sure why they're filing the lawsuit. Something to do with the Spence Jr. Crawford fight, but nonetheless, Spence Jr. isn't having the best of times at the moment. B will fight May 25th. Haney is expected to fight Martin next. Joshua is planned to fight on September 20th or 21st against the winner of Wilder versus Zhang or Dubois versus Hrgovic, and so I'm intrigued by the prospect of course him being relatively active and fighting again soon, and they're good matchups. It seems like His Excellency wants to kind of do whichever one's the more entertaining fight out of the two, and I have a lot of respect for that. It means it could possibly still be Wilder that we could see after everything that's happened, but obviously it is later on in his Wilder's career now, and I think it wouldn't surprise me if it's Dubois, if I'm being completely honest, it wouldn't surprise me. But nonetheless, prospects of all four would be entertaining fights. Janabek and Adamus have been going back and forth on X. Eubank Jr. is a free agent. Chaparro won via KO in round 1 versus Aguirre. Boca Negra won via unanimous decision versus Rocha. Dove won via unanimous decision versus Lopez. Perro won via TK in round 1 versus Tarmes. Garcia won via KO in round 2 versus Richard. Rivera Pizarro won via unanimous decision versus Perez. Harris won via TK in round 5 versus Caro. Aguiar won via unanimous decision versus Vega. Tellers won via unanimous decision versus Jackson. Brown won via TK in round 2 versus Vermeer. Birchall won via points versus Ali. Taylor won via points versus Sinise. Rubino won via TK round 1 versus Ryan. Kulakmet won via TK round 4 versus Telerik. Hussey won via points versus Lebezuska. Hennigan won via points versus Barabaz. Marnes won via split decision versus Rankin. Wanted to give a congratulations to Hennigan, somebody I've had the pleasure of interviewing. Clark won via points vs Sparta. Odin won via TK round 3 vs Eusebio. Stringer won via points vs Oliveira. McGrail won via points vs Walker. Courtney won via points vs Di Stefano. Bostan won via TK round 8 vs Martin to become Commonwealth Silver Super Welterweight Champion. Ferreira won via technical unanimous decision vs Lescano to become IBF World Lightweight Champion. McGrail won via unanimous decision versus Leach, and to speak a bit more about that card, it was an intriguing next gen card. It's mad how a next gen card can have a world title on, and it was. To speak about a couple of the fights, just want to congratulate, of course, Clark, Stringer, two people I've had the pleasure of speaking to, and then to speak about the Bostan fight. It was a impressive knockout by him. It was a very good performance, to be completely honest. His body shots, when they weren't straying low, were very impressive, and he was putting together his work very nicely, using his power. He seemed like very confident in there, and he uses that confidence. Martin, though, he's a warrior. He made it all the way to the 8th round when he was, to his credit, getting hit a lot with quite big shots, but he had a warrior heart, and I obviously spoke to him a while ago, and he kind of seemed to have that mindset of whoever boxing takes him, it takes him, and never really kind of thought that he would ever get to the point where he's at in his career now. But to have achieved what he's achieved and gone out and get upsets a lot of the time, and to be on a big card like it was, it shows a lot of credit, and it's always one of them stories which you really do like to see. Ferreira, though, got my prediction right. Complete dominating performance versus Lescano. Just brutal, to be completely honest. She is a real entertaining fighter. I think she is going to go. Defensive wise, there are still things, and nonetheless, there is still possible issues around. But I think she is one of the best fighters in the lightweight division. I think the fight versus Dubois, obviously, I doubt it's going to happen, but it would be an amazing fight to see, and hopefully, maybe one day we will be able to see it. But nonetheless, she is a real entertaining fighter, and one of my favourites in the women's rankings at the moment. And McGrail, shutout victory, really. I mean, he got caught with shots a bit at times, so defensive wise, maybe there are still problems, but he seemed to be able to deal with getting taken by these shots, even though he was coming off quite a bad stoppage defeat before. So nonetheless, he did what he had to do and managed to get to the unanimous decision victory. Moving on, Gonzalez won via stoppage in round 1 versus Marron Jr. to remain North American Boxing Federation welterweight champion. Duarte won via KO in round 9 versus Diaz. Alanis won via split decision versus Esparza to become WBA, WBC and WBO world flyweight champion. Ramirez won via unanimous decision versus Barthélemy. Ortiz Jr. won via KO in round 1 versus Delorme. And to speak about that card, I did a prediction for this pretty much whole card, but I did it mainly for the Alanis Esparza fight, and of course Esparza came in overweight. But Alanis managed to get the victory in the end. Obviously, I haven't been able to see too much of the fight because there isn't really highlights or anything like that, and it's difficult to find stuff. But from what I have seen, Alanis, it was a relatively similar fight. I just think Esparza wasn't moving anywhere near as good as what she was in the first fight, and she just, maybe it was the weight or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but obviously she came in overweight. It's a big factor. But Alanis, it wasn't an amazingly good display or anything like that. I don't think we're going to end up seeing a third fight of this like I possibly thought it could have been, possibly a bit of a better fight. But nonetheless, Alanis went to America and got the belts from Esparza, and full credit to her, and she has been a worthy fighter to become a world champion. Ramirez, unanimous decision versus Barthélemy. That was an interesting fight. Barthélemy obviously, dropped Ramirez. I think it was a clear knockdown, to be completely honest, but I don't know what he was doing, just continuously throwing when he was on the ground. It was like 4 or 5 shots when he was on his knee, and it was like the ref really could have done a lot more than just warn him. But I respect him for warning him. Like, I don't, do I? He's a very good ref, but it was just strange. Like, it could have been given a knockdown, and then it's a 10-8, but then it's also a deducted point, so it's a 9-8, which is pretty much doesn't really do anything, I suppose, anyway. But nonetheless, Ramirez didn't look anything crazy. His defense has always been a bit of a problem, and his body work's always been an amazing attribute, and he seemed to get into his groove and get into it going into the later rounds. But it took time. He did get hurt. Barthélemy, and I'm sure he's going to be back at fighting like a fringe world level again soon, because he did bring the fight and he was a valiant opponent, even with his older age where he did look like he was, struggling a bit more into the later rounds. But nonetheless, an interesting test for Ramirez, and I'm not necessarily sure as to where he'll go next after this. I don't know if necessarily the move to Golden Boy was a good move for him. The Ortiz Jr. one, he's a great talent. I think everybody's noticed that by now. He is a world-class talent, and he pretty much didn't really do anything against Delorme. He landed one very, very good body shot, but he pretty much just landed that one shot, and that's all he had to do. And he's got great power. He's becoming a lot smarter in the ring, and he's just a real great fighter. Probably is one of the best, if not the best, that Golden Boy have at the moment. And Delorme, we knew that his punch resistance wasn't there. We knew that he was probably going to be able to get the stoppage defeat against Ortiz. And Ortiz now, obviously, the prospect of the Tszyu fight is going to be an amazing fight. It has people's main event written all over it, and I'm sure it will be. And so full credit to Ortiz, fully deserving. Sometimes you see, fights get announced and then something happens beforehand when there is a fight beforehand, and then it all goes out the window. But Ortiz did what he had to do in a clear shutout victory, and it was funny to see him kind of like get the body shot, see him go down, then just nod as he went down and just acknowledge that he was like, okay, yeah, that's expected, which was just, in my opinion, entertaining to see. Bostan is now mandatory challenger to Cutler. Mercado won via unanimous decision versus Lecker to remain WBC World Super Bantamweight Champion. I haven't been able to see the fight of this, to be completely honest. There's not really any kind of footage out there of it, and nonetheless, Mercado yet again getting a win, retaining a title again. She's now retained it quite a lot of times now, and she is becoming a well-renowned world champion. It's just the level of opponents I really feel do need to step up now, and hopefully they will soon. Tszyu won via unanimous decision versus Bautista to become WBA World Flyweight Champion. From what I have seen from this fight, it seemed like Tszyu boxed better than I thought she would. I thought like she kind of dealt with the pressure of Bautista quite well, and I got my prediction wrong. I thought that she would lose, but credit to Tszyu, world champion at just, I believe, 4 fights, is it? Quickest ever Canadian world champion, and nonetheless, she's now got this belt. I'm sure she's going to want to defend it a few times before she rushes into anything else, but it shows that the amateur pedigree has done so much for her, and she's kind of has bought an amateur style to start off with, but it now has been drawn into a professional style, which is always good and important to see. Conan won via unanimous decision versus Granadino to become IBO World Flyweight Champion in their rematch. I was going to do a prediction for this, but I couldn't really find footage of the first fight, so I feel like I would have just been saying the same stuff anyway. But nonetheless, Conan becoming a world champion. Farr has retired, and Franklin will fight May 23rd. Now to speak about the MMA news. Pfeiffer versus Barry Alt, Swanson versus Philly, and Bueno Silva versus Chiasson will fight June 29th. Tainan will fight Sherilly June 7th. UFC will return to Manchester July 27th. Strange, the 3 a.m. start time for that is very, very weird, and not a fan of that, to be completely honest. Zeong versus Stamp, Haggerty versus Superlek, Ruotolo versus Musumeki, and Harrison versus San will fight September 6th. Haggerty versus Superlek, them fighting again. It's a great fight. I might do a prediction for it, I'm not too sure yet, but it is a really good fight, so I'm definitely going to be keeping tabs and going to be talking about it in the weekly fighting roundup come September 6th. Buckley will fight Rizibioev May 11th. Marshall will fight Vargas June 8th. Reyes will fight Jacoby June 8th. Mahashate won via decision versus Benitez. Petrovic won via submission round 3 versus Nar. Lon Top won via submission round 1 versus Padilla. Souza won via decision versus Maun. Mayers won via decision versus Machado. Hubbard won via decision versus Figlak. Henry won via KO in round 3 versus Yaya. Medic won via KO in round 1 versus Means. Onama won via decision versus Pierce. Diniz won via KO in round 2 versus Lane. Silva won via decision versus Lipsky. Guzkov won via KO in round 2 versus Span. Perez won via KO in round 2 versus Nicolau. Perry won via KO in round 1 versus Alves. And McGregor is now the owner of BKFC. To speak about a couple of the fights from the UFC, Perez, it was a good knockout of Nicolau, to be completely honest. That has made a bit of a statement, but I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to go on to fight for a world championship soon. I think the flyweight division is becoming more contested, which has been something which every fan's been calling out for a long time. Possibly the Cape fight, I don't really know what's happening with that. Possibly a Cara France fight. other people like Albazi maybe, I don't know, but nonetheless, Perez, he is still coming off 2 defeats before that win, but that win was an important win and it was an impressive win nonetheless. The Guzkov one, it was funny to see the talks about him versus him looking like Anthony Smith. But anyway, it was an impressive knockout versus Span, and I don't really necessarily know what Span's got left in his career now, but Guzkov now being coming into the rankings, and any other fights I want to speak about? Medic, very impressive KO. Onama versus Pierce was an entertaining fight. Good movement on the ground from Onama to get out of quite a lot of seen as bad positions. The Perry one versus Alves, it's mad to see Perry just becoming the face of BKFC now, and obviously now McGregor's bought it as well. It's another added thing to it, but it's just, I don't feel like anybody would have predicted that when we look at Perry's UFC career just being not anything too crazy, to then go on to be the actual face of BKFC now, and all his fights just being the most entertaining things. And I think he made like 600 grand a second or something like that, something crazy, or 600 grand for the whole fight, and like, I don't know, something crazy. But yeah, credit to Perry, another impressive stoppage KO, and it just seems like the BKFC whole sport is just made for him, and it'll be intriguing to see what the next opportunity is for him. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. Like video if you didn't, like video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.